They say all men are created equal.
Shot! Master!
I pull out the Glock.
Full of suffering succotash, son.
One of your nuts is hanging out of your shorts.
Real glass!
You have a father, but your father's dead.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Too Sweet podcast with just Lucy this week. I'm afraid Estelle's not feeling too well, so please send all your best wishes to her telepathically, and keep her in your thoughts. Hopefully she will be back for the Wrestledream review this weekend. Speaking of which, I'm here with the Dynamite review. Wrestledream is, like mentioned, this Saturday, so this was the go home show. It's all big head of steam, getting ready for the pay-per-view, last finishing touches on some feuds and things like that. So always a very exciting time. I'm going to run through Dynamite and I'm going to sprinkle in some predictions while I'm at it. And then I'm going to give a rating at the end, as we usually do. But in case you're new here, that's how it normally goes. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and follow. It really does help us out with the algorithm and things. And, it's fantastic how quickly we've grown. And we just want to keep on growing. And as always, do let us know what content you want to see from Estelle and I. We're always open to new ideas. And we really do feel like we're in a growth stage with the podcast. And we have exciting new things planned. So do keep your eyes open for that. But anyway, I'm not going to keep on waffling. Let's talk about Dynamite, because that's what we're all here for at the end of the day. So, starting off the show, we had Excalibur running down what was going to happen. It was a 3-hour special. So they had Dynamite first 2 hours and then Collision straight afterwards. So this was, obviously 1 hour longer than usual, really playing into, the special event feel. I'm not sure. Oh, well, because Collision's normally on Saturdays, and Wrestledream is going to be on Saturday as opposed to a Sunday this weekend, so that is why. And I will say that this worked better this time than it did last time. So last time they did this, it felt a bit of a jarring shift between Dynamite and Collision. Whereas this time, it didn't. They just flowed into one another, and they did change the logo at the end of the second hour. But from the Dynamite logo to the Collision logo, but other than that, it didn't feel much different. It didn't feel like, we had a Dynamite main event and then suddenly we were starting again from Collision, because it kind of did feel like that last time. No, it just sort of bled into one another and felt like a coherent show, which I think is exactly what it needed to be. That I thought it was a much better than last time. So that was really nice. So as I was saying, Excalibur was running down everything that was going to happen on the show. It was stacked. There was a whole lot for him to get through. Poor guy probably had a really sore throat by the end of that. And the first thing was Kris Statlander and Toni Storm having a talky talk, basically, with the sit down interview with Renee backstage. Still very homoerotic between these two. They started off by stripping off, like trying to, intimidate one another, turn each other on. I'm not really sure. Renee was like, nah, stop this. She'd had enough. She started stripping off. Things got really intense between them. It was a, great little interaction. And then they were like, well, fuck this. Let's just go talk inside the ring. Let's actually go fight inside the ring. So Renee had made a point of saying, oh, no physicality, whatever. And they were like, well, I see it in the ring right now. So then it was a really fun little transition from it just being your standard interview to suddenly being action inside the ring. And they were brawling. They both offered each other shots with the championship belt. They were both sort of openly presented themselves to the other while they had hold of the belt, as if to say, come on, give me your worst, but neither of them took it. So it was an interesting dynamic that, really helped to build excitement for their match. I'm personally buzzing for it. I think it could be, I think I might have said this last week, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, a sleeper for match of the night. And I think it's going to be brilliant. It's interesting that we've got two faces going against each other, so it'll be interesting to see how they play that off. But yeah, I think the dynamics of this are very interesting, very romantic, as I've said, a little bit sexy, a little bit I hate you, but I want to kiss you type of situation, which is always great. I'm always here for that. So yeah, I think that Kris Statlander is going to retain the championship. I don't, her reign is very short still, so I don't really envision Toni Storm picking up the championship from Kris Statlander. Like I don't envision like a hot potato type situation with the belt, to be honest. Um, I don't really think there's much more to say about that. I don't think that's a controversial opinion. I don't believe that many people would think that Toni will win this, but although I could be wrong, people do tend to surprise me. So anyway, the next segment was Jack Perry giving a little promo. He was basically in a match later on tonight with Luchasaurus and Kenny Omega against the Bucks. And he was basically saying, "Yeah, I'm addressing the Bucks. Yeah, I loved you guys, but when I needed you the most, you didn't have my back." And that was that really. So setting up for an interesting dynamic later on, it was essentially, can Kenny really trust Jack Perry after everything that's happened? The dynamic being, oh, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's sort of like a an alliance of convenience for them in this match. But I I think it worked really well. But we'll talk more about that when we get to the actual match. Um, so then we had the first actual wrestling match of the evening, which was the Demand versus the Hurt Syndicate. Oh wait, sorry, no, Gates of Agony versus the Hurt Syndicate. That's an important distinction. I mean, isn't it confusing, two different names? Like, oh my gosh, they should just pick one and settle on it. I mean, I get it. It's the Demand one with Ricochet. It's Gates of Agony as the original tag team. Yeah, I get it, but still, gosh, annoying. Um, so yeah, anyway, it was just a standard 2-on-2 versus 2 tag match. Um, MVP and Ricochet were the ones who were on the outside. And, you could be forgiven for like being like pessimistic about this match and thinking, oh well, we saw this last week. Why do we want to see it again? And yes, it was sort of just a repeat of last week, but to me, it didn't feel repetitive. It was a very different type of match. As I said, this was 2-on-2, and last week it was just a street fight, a free for all. So this was, in terms of match style, very different, and they told a bit of a different story. They still though brought the same levels of intensity and violence. Um, and yeah, so Ricochet ended up getting involved, as you would probably expect. MVP took Ricochet down, but then I believe like the distraction from that was enough to allow the Demand or Gates of Agony or whatever Gates of Demand, Agony, Demand, whatever you want to call them, the win. Um, yeah, Ricochet got in the ring and speared Shelton Benjamin. That set up Toa to pin him for the win. So yeah, I think you would say that the match last week was probably better than this. Um, but I think that like I said, there was a different story in this one where it was the first time that the Hurt Syndicate have ever been pinned in a straight up 2-on-2 match, which is obviously significant. Um, so then, you've really got some, I'd say, doubt in your mind that, yeah, potentially they could lose at Wrestledream. Um, because the Demand are looking incredibly strong, and obviously it wasn't a clean win this week, but they're just planting seeds of doubt, aren't they? That suddenly Hurt Syndicate aren't this undefeatable, invincible tag team. which is quite nice. And I enjoyed this match for what it was. Like I said, I did, it wasn't the most outstanding match ever, but it was still good, and it was still, big meaty men slapping meat, bringing that level of violence. Um, so who do I think is going to actually win at Wrestledream? I know that I've just said that, all the planting the seeds of doubt. I still think that the Hurt Syndicate are going to beat them. I think Ricochet's going to get his comeuppance, ultimately. That's the payoff, and I think that'll probably be quite a satisfying payoff. So then, what was next? Well, it was a pretty dramatic, cinematic, can't get my words out, um, segment where Darby and Moxley were having a talky talk, but sort of through like prison glass, like where they can hear each other, but they can't touch each other, they can't reach each other. So that in itself was a really cool concept. Just like, can't trust these two to be in the same room together at all. Um, and just, the camera angles and the lighting just made for a really, from the very start, this felt, like I've already said, cinematic and just a whole new level. Which is perfectly suitable for them and their feud and the way it's been going. It's been so personal. It's been so intense. Um, Darby was saying there's not a day goes by that I don't think about drowning the Death Riders, etc. But he just can't because he doesn't respect or he can't possibly trust Jon Moxley because of what he did to Bryan Danielson. Um, and typically a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of eloquent words from Moxley. He said the biggest difference between us is that I'm not selfish. It's not about me. Sort of putting himself on a higher pedestal and on his high horse, believing that everything he does is justified, and and Darby being like, "Am I on the right side of this?" etc. So more complex than just we hate each other and we want to kill each other. And then Pac started attacking Darby out of nowhere, just appeared from behind him. And this is when it got really, really quite intense. So Darby was bleeding. It looked really real, just the way they filmed it. They managed to make it look so real. And he was bleeding, and his face was getting smeared all down this glass. Oh, it was brutal. It was brutal, but it was beautiful, and I loved it. It was perfect for those two. You don't expect anything less from those two, do you? Um, but that wasn't the last of those two, so we will see more from that feud later on. But we did have quite a nice transition from that into the next match, Claudio versus Roderick Strong. This really enabled them to, really have a smooth transition from one segment to the next. Danielson, of course, on commentary, adding a really nice personal edge to it all. They were going proper just fighting mode right from the very start. But ultimately, it was Claudio who had the upper hand for pretty much all of this match. I mean, Roderick Strong did get some pretty good offense in. For example, he did a backbreaker on Claudio from the top turnbuckle, which was just horrible. Like I said, that it was strong, strong style moves that's typical of both of these two, as well as, like the technical ability. Just an excellent pairing inside the ring. I really enjoyed this match. Ultimately, though, like I said, Claudio was dominant throughout. He got the clean win, completely clean, no interference. He like intercepted one of Roderick's moves. He like ran at him double knees, I think, and then threw him up for the European uppercut. I love the fact that Claudio is still using this move as a finisher. I just think what an impactful move. The fact that it can come out of nowhere is great, and it's very unique to him because not many people can throw someone up that high. Like, he's just incredibly strong, and everyone always says about Claudio, but it is true. And what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, and just the fact because he is so strong, he can he did it multiple times in this match, like literally swat someone out of the air and just grab them instantly, and it's not sloppy ever just because he has got that just incredible strength to really do anything with someone's body. And yeah, on comms, they really made a point about the Death Riders not getting involved. So I think this is significant for Claudio. He's looking incredibly dangerous. And as a Claudio fan, it's things you love to see. And I've been seeing a lot of heat for him online. And also I'm feeling that from the crowd as well, which is just fantastic. That's what you really want. Um, he's like, he's the, did they call him the mercenary? I don't think they do actually, do they? But he is almost like the mercenary of the Death Riders in the way that he is. He's just stoic and he is unthinking. He'll just be as violent as possible. Um, there's not a lot of complexity to his character. Just what you see is what you get, and just what you're seeing is a great wrestler, essentially. I could ramble on about how good Claudio is for a long time, but we've got a lot to get through, so I'm not going to do that. Um, We had Don Callis's birthday party. This was funny. Apparently, 13th of October is his birthday. He says, addresses the fact that the family's so big. He says, well, it's because numbers are power. Um, he says, as a businessman, I don't like words like work stoppage and picket lines, but I will do anything to get whatever any of you need. So interesting. What's that alluding to? He's basically gonna who knows? Who knows? Crossing some picket lines, perhaps. Um, and then we had a little video from Takeshita like playing on it. It was funny. They were trying to like hide it behind a blanket, but you could clearly see his face through this blanket because the screen was already turned on, and just looked like a ghost. But yeah, it was Takeshita saying he's sorry that he couldn't be there for Don Callis, but he was, of course, in Japan, a bit busy winning the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. And this was before he'd won, so he was saying, "Oh, thank you for everything you've done for my career, Don. I'm going to win the IWGP Championship for you." But before he finished, Okada turned it off. He was like, "I'm so sorry, I pressed the wrong button." Just classic Okada shithousery. Um, and then they played a little video package of Takeshita's match with Zack Sabre Jr. showing him winning. So how exciting is that? That's amazing for Takeshita. So happy for him. Yeah, incredible stuff. Incredible scenes. Very well deserved. Man's going to be busy as hell. But good for him, as he should do. I just hope that we can still see a lot of him in AEW. Um, I guess this point is a good point to address that Andrade-shaped elephant in the room. So he obviously like had a really shocking debut and then hasn't been seen on TV for 2 weeks. I know a couple of you guys were talking about it in the comment section last week. There's been a report from Brian Alvarez that it's because WWE has sent AEW a cease and desist letter, because he's apparently broken his 90-day non-compete clause, by going on TV after getting released. Alvarez said, I was told that Andrade is not hurt. He didn't get himself fired. Apparently something is up involving his WWE non-compete. When he was fired, remember we were told WWE didn't care. Meltzer said that he's been hearing that too, and AEW didn't know about the non-compete. So yeah, I mean, he's taking it old school, getting paid, tricking two wrestling companies into paying him at the same time. Good for him, I guess. I mean, it's just funny, isn't it? It just sucks the air out of that. What was a really hot angle when it first happened, and well, it is what it is. No one knows for certain what is really happening behind the scenes. It's all just hearsay, but hilarious if true. Regardless of what is not true, it's still a shame, really, isn't it? But oh well. There's so many people in Don Callis' family. I think they didn't miss him at that family dinner. Let's just say that. So then we moved on from that to Don Callis introducing the walking weapon, Josh Alexander, by calling him the greatest technical wrestler in the history of Canada. This reminds me actually to address the Ibushi situation. Really shit for him, poor guy. So at the Collision taping last week, he had a match with Josh Alexander, and he sort of did a spot where he fell off the top turnbuckle down to the outside, and he has broken his femur doing that. I mean, that is absolutely rotten for him. I think it was only like his fifth match back or something after another major injury. So this is just terrible, terrible luck for Ibushi, and wishing him the speediest of recoveries, but that's not gonna be speedy. That is definitely not gonna be speedy. So that's a real shame for him and for, I mean, everyone at AEW, because I mean, what a wrestler, what a shit thing to happen. So yeah, Josh Alexander was part of this match, which was Hechicero, Mark Davis, and Josh Alexander versus Kenny Omega and Jurassic Express. So yeah, we talked about the segment earlier with Jack Perry, and yeah, really there's obviously a lot of buzz around Kenny. Um, and the whole story was based around, like I said earlier, can Kenny trust Jack Perry or not? Which is a very interesting concept because there is a Reddit post that Stella sent to me about Jack Perry, which I'm just going to read out here because this really got me thinking a lot deeper about Jack Perry. So yeah, um, so basically, this person in the Squared Circle subreddit is saying that, you know, it's kind of like a parallel to the story of Frankenstein, the hubris of a man thinking he can bend the laws of nature and death to his will. Dr. Frankenstein's not a hero, he's a villain who fucks with forces he never should have. If Jack Perry's supposed to be a good person, why show these scenes of him doing something really weird to Luchasaurus, like when he was putting him, like, almost like shocking him back to life, etc. Why is he trying to cheat? Is he yelling at Luchasaurus? Why is he smirking? Um, it feels like he's still a villain, basically. Nothing's really changed for Jack. This person is saying he's he's still the same guy that he was before. The difference being the music and things. Um, they said Jack Perry's found a way through our love of Luchasaurus and Jurassic Express to get cheered again without doing anything to earn it. He hasn't shown any signs of remorse or that he has changed. He's only bent Luchasaurus to his will and hit us with the sweet nostalgia. I think over the next few months we're going to see more and more that Jack is the villain. He's controlling Luchasaurus. He's manipulating us. The ultimate redemption arc of Luchasaurus simulated doesn't need a partner or a friend. He's a fucking monster and can stand on his own. I think this is a very interesting concept, and I didn't really thought about it that deeply, but that is so true. Like, what really has Jack Perry done to earn our respect? I feel like he did try to do that in this match. So, like I said, it was him trying to earn the respect of Kenny Omega. And he did end up taking a bullet for Kenny later on in the match. So then, you know, are we seeing that? Does that debunk the villain theory? I don't know. I just think it's fascinating to think about that. Just in terms of, you know, is Jack Perry just being super manipulative and knows he doesn't really have to do much to earn our respect because people just love the nostalgia factor of the music and the things, and they love Luchasaurus. But anyway, yeah, just something to think about. Um, so yeah, Don Callis was on commentary. He said one of my favorite things that he said was he's resilient, much like a cockroach, about Kenny Omega. Um, of course, like I said, a lot of the focus was on Omega, and he got a big hot tag. He was moving fast. He looked absolutely great in this match. He looked fresh. He looked ready and raring to go. Plenty of chaos. This was probably the best match of the night. So Kenny was about to go for the V trigger, and then Don Callis distracted him. And then Alexander hit a chop block. This is the point where Jack Perry took a bullet for Kenny, pushed him out of the way of offense from Alexander, I believe it was. And then Mark Davis hit a pile driver to Kenny, and to be honest, I thought that was it, but he kicked out. Thank God, a serious near fall there. And then Jurassic Express fought back, hitting like a doomsday device for the win. So yeah, the Jurassic Express standing tall at the end. Everyone's happy to see them back. It's all very happy-go-lucky. Kenny Omega's still a bit sort of wary of Jack Perry with a good reason. And then the Bucks appeared. They started going on the attack on Jurassic Express, and that's when Kenny saved them. And then the Bucks, when they realized it was Kenny, like hesitated to attack him because it's all very complicated and angsty there, isn't it? And then they got taken down by Luchasaurus, and it's going to be the Bucks versus Jurassic Express at Wrestledream, but it's going to be a money match, 500k on the line. So adds extra stakes for the Bucks, doesn't it? Those broke boys. But yeah, a lot of fun. Just yeah, I love this. It's just classic AEW. It has got a taste of nostalgia, and that's great. Sometimes you just need a little bit of a throwback. Um, I'm really into the way that these stories are interacting with one another, the element that Kenny's playing in it. It's just a whole lot of fun, and this match was a joy to watch, really. My instinct tells me that this is just going to be a nice, light-hearted, feel-good moment for Jurassic Express to get the win. Um, but then I'm not saying that with a whole lot of conviction. I'm not 100% certain on that. I think Estelle and I might have talked about this last week, but I do think the stipulation like changes it a bit. Obviously, it changes the stakes and just changes up the story based, if the Bucks win. It's more plausible that they would win because they really obviously need the money. That's their whole thing at the moment. Um, but I'll stick with my gut instinct because that's that's all you can do in life. Just trust your gut. So yeah, we're going with Jurassic Express for that one. By the way, let me know in the comments what you think of my predictions. Let's do a predictions games, guys. I don't have a cell with me to do one, so let's do it between ourselves. Let's see who wins. Um, so moving on with Dynamite. It was Sky Blue versus Jamie Hayter. Julia Hart came to accompany Sky Blue to the ring, and we know that it's going to be Hayter versus Tekla at Wrestledream. So the story of this one was really, this is Sky Blue's opportunity to sort of like soften up Jamie Hayter for her teammate. We had technical wrestling to start rather than violence. Jamie Hayter seemed to be really over, doing classic face stuff. Um, But then Julia did eventually get involved, causing the distraction to allow Sky Blue to get the upper hand for a bit, followed by a nasty neck breaker on the apron. This was a very good back and forth match. We had another pretty extreme spot here, like through Sky Blue just on the floor. They weren't holding back. The crowd were on their feet. It was absolutely great to see. It was super back and forth right until the very end, and Hayter had been going for the Haterade throughout, and then when she eventually did land it, that was it. That was at the end. So yeah, really enjoyed this one and really like the little story that they're telling. Then Tekla appeared on the screen, um, basically saying that she only attacked Hayter when she debuted because she just happened to be there. It was like a convenience thing, like, oh, you just so irrelevant. You were just the one person who happened to be there, and I wanted to make my name a name for myself type thing. She said my name means chaos and poison, and on Saturday it's gonna get toxic to the core. Come on, Jamie, impress me. So yeah, helping to build up Tekla's character, giving her a bit of a chance to speak on her own as well. I think that was nice. And I enjoyed the promo. Overall, I enjoyed this whole segment. And I'm really looking forward to the match. Um, yeah, no complaints. No complaints from me. I think it's gonna bang. Who do I think is gonna win? Well, I think I was quite decisively gonna say Jamie Hayter then, but I feel like maybe I want to backtrack on that. I'm doubting myself because I'm not sure why I just initially thought Jamie Hayter, because giving it a little bit more thought, I think Tekla probably needs this more, just because Triangle Madness is really awesome. It has the potential to be really hot, and I think that a bit of a heelish win here could do that for them. I don't want it to like be a fuck you win in the way that it would undermine Tekla and her skills. But yeah, I think it makes more sense. I think it makes more sense for Tekla to win this one because obviously they're going to be building up for the women's tag team championships. They want to establish this as a really strong team in contendership for that. And just thinking about the title picture at the moment, there's a lot of faces going on. You know, we've currently got Toni Storm versus Kris Statlander in that sort of title picture. So I'm not saying that this match has title implications, but you would maybe think that they'd want to build up a heel more than a face at this point. Don't know, maybe I'm totally off. So let me know what you think in the comments, as always. So then we also had Mercedes Moné doing a little promo segment backstage with Renee. Renee told her on Saturday she's going to become the longest reigning TBS champion in history. So Mercedes is defending her CMML World Women's Championship against Persephone this Friday. So she was talking a bit about that and putting that show over, which is great to see. And yeah, she's going to become the longest reigning TBS champion in history. So good for her. Next up we had LFI versus the Ops. So apparently Tammy Guevara's joined LFI for some fucking reason, and they are Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. Great. So we had Hangman on commentary, which unironically was great. He was there to observe Samoa Joe in this match. He was joined by Hobbs and Shibata. So Joe obviously looking like a total badass, and the whole point was to just establish him as a serious threat for Hangman. So, but to be honest, I thought that Shibata was really the star of this. He just showed a lot of fighting spirit. He seemed to have a lot of time inside the ring. And when he got that absolutely red hot tag to Joe, he came in, just all guns blazing. He managed to get Listicle in the Kukida clutch, and well, he'd like jumped off the top rope and he just caught him in midair. It was fucking badass, and he tapped out. I will say, like, I didn't find this incredibly engaging like at the start, but it really picked up towards the end, and just like listening to Hangman on commentary made it interesting more than anything else, to be honest. And yeah, just really good at establishing Joe as a real threat. Hangman made a point of saying things like, "Well, I can't spot a weakness. He doesn't have a weakness." And then so they were sort of breaking down at the end. They were brawling and stuff, and Hangman wasn't getting involved until I think it was Roosh spat at him. So then he was like, "Nah, fuck this," and then he got in the ring and took them out. And yet another very tense moment between him and Joe. Joe like didn't want to give up, didn't want to let go of the championship. So yeah, I think it's shaping up nicely. They've done quite a lot in a short space of time to build up the tension between Hangman and Joe. Joe is just such like that you can't not believe his intensity and his anger. Like, it might seem a bit far-fetched that it's evolved from a very small sort of altercation after a match where they were tagging together, but with Joe it's so believable. That's just him, that's just his personality, that or his character. So yeah, I enjoyed this one a lot. Which I'm realizing I'm pretty enjoying a lot of things on this show. But who do I think is gonna win the AEW World Championship match? Well, Hangman Adam Page. I feel like it seems like a pretty foregone conclusion, and I don't think I need to dwell on that all too much. It's not gonna harm Joe if he loses the match. Sorry, I just hiccuped. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. We'll keep this concise. Like I said, we've got a lot of things to get through. So I believe was that the start of the second hour, or was that just the end of the second hour? I think that was like the end. A possible. I don't know. See what I mean? Like it wasn't an abrupt start and end to Dynamite and start and end to Collision. They bled into each other. So hence I can't even remember when the second hour ended and the third hour began. I think it was certainly around this point anyway, either before or after the match I've just talked about. The next match then was Orange Cassidy and Kyle Fletcher versus Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia. And again, having Danielson on commentary really added to this. He was just gracing us with lots of attention to detail and story beats. He, for example, pointed out that Daniel Garcia wears shorts now instead of trunks. He was like, yeah, little things that have changed about Garcia. He said he talked about things that he taught Wheeler Yuta that he's obviously not paying attention to. Just things like that really give it an edge when Danielson's on comms. A hilarious moment, Orange Cassidy doing the Garcia dance, mocking him. And Orange Cassidy, Kyle. Oh, I said Kyle Fletcher, I think, didn't I, before? It wasn't Kyle Fletcher, it was Kyle O'Reilly. Sorry, guys, getting mixed up with my Kyles. Um, Orange Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly, of course, a very endearing team, very easy to get behind, very, very in sync. Whereas, on the other hand, Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia, I mean, they had moments where they were synchronized, but I kind of get like Dumb and Dumber vibes from these two. That's cruel, and I love them both, but um, just they don't really. They're like two brothers who are being forced to get along and play nicely, even though they're really furious at each other, and they both just want Daddy to love them the most. That's kind of what this is giving. I think there's a lot of interesting dynamics with it. Um, so yeah. Um, so I think as well because Garcia is like, is he like living up to Moxley's expectations, and does Yuta sense that like, well, he's not better than me, so why does Moxley like him so much? Why is he his shiny new toy? What about me? Um, so the reason I say that is because Kyle O'Reilly sort of had him in a front chancery, I think, on Daniel Garcia, but Marina jumped on the apron. You could see Moxley's face. He was distraught. He thought he was about to lose. Sure enough, Garcia was tapping out, but of course the referee was distracted, didn't see it. And then it all started to break down. Pac got involved. Claudio then uppercutted Kyle. He was totally out of it, allowing Garcia to then get the pin. So he wasn't a clean win for Garcia. He nearly lost it for the team, which I think is significant, and that is something that Wheeler Yuta will cling on to. It all started breaking down. It was brawling and shooing. Moxley then got in the ring, and then Darby appeared. So remember him? He got killed in that police station earlier on in the show, and he looked dead. I mean, he looked like a zombie. Shivani said it on commentary, and it was spot on. He was walking like a zombie, and it was hilarious, to be honest. So Claudio came in, insta killed him with a uppercut, but he was still going. He was still crawling, like trying to get to the final boss of John Moxley, trying to get through all the Death Riders. They would instantly just take him down, but then he'd get back up, keep on crawling. He eventually made it to the ring, had the AEW flag laid out in front of him, and then John Moxley gave him a Death Rider on top of it was his Mount Everest flag that he took to the top of Mount Everest, apparently. So yeah, Moxley DDT'd him right on top of it. Which, I mean, I get the overt symbolism, right? He's climbing up to get to the top of the mountain, up to get to the top of the Death Riders, John Moxley, and he's laying down the AEW flags. He's doing it for AEW and etc. Blah blah blah. I just felt like this was a bit stupid. I don't. I've seen people liking this and I've seen other people hating it. I just thought it was just a bit daft. I get it because it's going to be an I Quit match, obviously. So it's kind of like, oh, Darby Allin, look at him. He just never quits. What a guy. Oh my God. He can climb Mount Everest. He can do this. He can do that. He can fight past all the Death Riders. All he wants to do is get his hands on Jon Moxley. But just a bit stupid to me. I don't know. It didn't land for me. I was just like, Darby, what are you doing? Can you sell this a little bit more? And I'm not saying he's bad at selling. He was selling that he was really in pain pretty good, but like he just kept on getting up. Like to Don Callis' point earlier about Kenny Omega like a cockroach, just wouldn't die. Which for me, I just thought that this segment took that a little bit too far. But I do still want to reiterate what I said last week in that I think this is going to end in some fucky sort of way where like Darby has been completely pummeled and killed Twink Death Ultimate so much so that he can't say I quit. He's passed out. So then technically Moxley doesn't win or something like that. That's what I think is going to happen. It's just going to get to a point where they have to be conscious to say I quit, and he's not conscious. There's going to be something like that. I felt like they kept on dropping hints for that tonight. But having said that, it's hard. I feel like they can do that spot, and then Darby will eventually get up, and then eventually make Jon Moxley quit. Maybe by choking him out, like call back to what Hangman did to him, something like that. Because clearly, we saw true fear in the eyes of Jon Moxley when Hangman Adam Page, hung him and then beat him for the World Championship. That will always stick in my brain. I think that was really powerful, and I do think they might do a callback to that. So I think Darby's getting his ultimate epic moment this weekend at Wrestledream. I've got Darby Allin for this one. So then we had an interesting segment. So Megan Bayne and FTR came down to the ring. What are they calling themselves? God, top gods. That's it. I was gonna say God guys. That's not right. Top gods, I believe. Which was a thing on Collision last week. A little bit random, a little out of the blue, but it seems like they're trying to go with it. So the match on Collision was Megan Bayne and FTR versus Jet Speed and Will Nightingale, which Megan Bayne won. And I love the fact that we are normalising mixed gender matches now in AEW. It's been quite a steady progression. I think Will Nightingale's been at the forefront of that. Feels like now we're finally there. So yeah, anyway, Megan Bayne cutting a promo. It's just a generic heel promo, nothing to write home about. Stokely hates Nightingale. He also hates Jet Speed. He said that Mike Bailey is someone who looks like Billy Ray Cyrus with an autoimmune disorder. Wow, crazy. And then Harley Cameron, Jet Speed, and Nightingale interrupted. They had a little thing on the screen. If I could give this team a name, it'd be the Serotonin team, because just looking at them, it's instant serotonin. And Harley Cameron was like, yeah, I know what FTR stands for. It stands for Fear the Wrath. And it was just awesome and beautiful. And then they were like, wait, what are we doing talking to a camera? Let's just go down to the ring and get at them. So then, it was Nightingale and Cameron who was sort of snuck up behind Megan Bayne, got one up over in that way. Will Nightingale ended up spine bustering Dax. And then it was suddenly announced that Megan Bayne versus Harley Cameron was going to start then and there, and it was awesome. It was chaos, but then Megan Bayne, of course, pretty much no-sold everything that had happened to her. She came into the match hot as fuck, and she pretty much dominated most of this match. But Harley Cameron, I will say, this is one of her strongest performances yet in AEW. She, for example, one big spot was a reversing. So I can't remember exactly what Megan Bayne was going for, but she had Harley Cameron on the top ropes, then she sort of jumped down and reversed it into a power bomb, which was just excellent, really well executed. We had Megan Bayne with her typical high impact, high strength spots. There was a big near fall for Megan Bayne. I really thought I thought it was over, and I was getting ready to write in my notes. This match was too short, but no, they worked me. It was a false finish. It really did feel like at that point that Hailey Cameron could be writing an upset story. She was building a lot of momentum, but then Megan Bayne sort of suddenly hit her with a running Liger bomb, and that ended it. And that was a very good match. And again, another one where I'm pretty sure the fans were chanting, "This is awesome." So clearly hitting with the live crowds, and it hit with me at home in my living room. So I loved it. I'm sure you all know how much I love Willow Nightingale, love Hailey Cameron, Megan Bayne. She's all right. She's growing on me a little bit. Um, yeah, I just love the women's division in general. So then we're gonna have on Saturday. They've decided to call the pre-show to Wrestledream Tailgate Brawl or something. So it's a bit of a shame really that all these wrestlers were featured very prominently at this slot on this show. Like, yes, it's an extra long show. You could argue that this last hour is not as important, but it's still taking up a lot of time. Unfortunately, this is going to be on the pre-show, so it's going to be Harley and Willow versus Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford, and it's also going to be FTR versus Jet Speed. But those matches have both already been announced to be on the pre-show, which kind of sucks, doesn't it? It's just there's four matches on this pre-show, man. I didn't talk about it earlier, but Roderick Strong, Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly, and Tomohiro Ishii versus the Death Riders is also going to be on the pre-show. I mean, there's a lot of big explosive stories happening on this pre-show, guys. I just, I don't know, because I want these matches to go ahead. Don't get me wrong, but if they have to go on the, do they have to go on the pre-show? Could we trim this down so that not as so fewer people are bumped down to the pre-show and have it, on a prominent Dynamite, or wait until the next big event? Do you know what I mean? Like Blood and Guts, for instance, that's a big event. But then I know they're doing the Triangle Bandits match there, but I don't know. Maybe there's a different way to go about this other than putting four significant matches on the pre-show. It just feels excessive to me. Um, this is a 12 match card if we're counting, pre-show and main show together. This is it's huge. It's absolutely stacked. It's absolutely stacked. I'm not complaining that we're getting a lot of wrestling. I'm really not. But I'm sure you guys can understand where I'm coming from with that one. Um, I'm not. I don't even think I'm going to bother doing predictions for those ones because I really don't know. And by putting it on the pre-show, I feel like I'm not put in a position to really care about it either, which is shit because I really do care, actually. I care a lot about fucking Willow Nightingale and Jet Speed, etc. All these little angels. But I just, I just don't know. I just don't, I can't. I can't engage my brain to give a prediction there. I'm sorry. Let's just pick my favourites. Willow and Hailey Cameron are going to win. Death Riders have got this one in the bag, and Jet Speed have got this one in the bag as well. And then speaking of the pre-show, we also had Hook and his new dad, Eddie Kingston, appear at this point, cutting a promo. Basically said that, oh, we've got to move on. We've got to move on. Let's do what we said we'd do when I was off, said Eddie Kingston. Let's go into the tag division. And they laid out an open challenge for any tag team to face them at the pre-show at Wrestledream, which it didn't sound like they gave a shit about it. I know they were just doing a bit, but they were like, the what? What's it called? The tailgate brawl? Okay. When is it? On Saturday. Okay. So, yeah. Who knows what's happening there? Shove Hook into the tag team, I guess. Fine. Whatever. Whatever. Who are they going to tag against? I don't know. Maybe it'll be the Acclaimed because that's who came up on screen next. It was Alicia being like, "Oh well, you've got two wins. Congratulations!" And Bowens is saying, "I'll never tag with Max Caster ever again." Max Caster says, "I'll never tag with Anthony Bowens ever again." They were begging Tony Khan not to put them in a third tag team match, and Alicia's like, "Well, I don't really think you've got a choice, mate." and they were like, "Oh, FML." Bowens was carrying a load of framed pictures of himself for some reason. Um, just felt very scripted. I'm not gonna lie. We broke them up just to put them back together. I mean, cool. Cool, okay. Finally, the last match of the night, which depending on how you look at it, is it the main event? Is it the main event of Collision? And then the other match earlier was the main event of Dynamite. Depends how you look at it. But anyway, we had Mark Briscoe and Bandido versus Kyle Fletcher. Yes, Kyle Fletcher was actually in this match. Um, not like I said earlier, got to getting him mixed up with Kyle O'Reilly. Lance Archer and Rocky Romero. Um, so this was, I mean, it's just classic AEW action. I know I've already said this, but it was high flying, hard hitting, non-stop from the very start. Um, and it was Brodito who eventually got the win. They had the knee and the pile driver on Rocky Romero. Rocky, dude, what even? I mean, he's always going to be the fall guy, isn't he, for the Don Callis family? So I think he's been typecasted as the jobber of the family, the uh, the middle child syndrome, I guess you could say. Um, but yeah, it was fun. There was nothing wrong with this match, to be honest. The most exciting part was Kyle Fletcher and Matt Briscoe brawling. At the end, they sort of just fucked off the match. They were brawling backstage, and that's how it ended. Um, then we had El Clone appearing. I still don't quite understand what this is. And then Okada came in to attack from behind, and it ended on that pretty hot angle. Um, so he was holding both the tag titles as if, at the weekend he's going to win them both. So clearly, it's going to be interesting to see how him and Takeshita will will team up. And I think, what did Estelle say last week? That, you know, they'll probably win, and it'll be, a mismatched team that there's tension, but we're not going to immediately address it, blah blah blah. Can they work together? Um, but yeah, I'm going to stick with what Estelle said, which I think was really apt. That, Jet Speed of, I mean, sorry, Jet Speed, Brodito. I'm just thinking of all these mishmash tag teams. Brodito, they're transitional champs and they've done their job and they've done excellent. But they're making way for a bigger story with, let's just put it how it is, bigger stars with Takeshi and Okada. Not taking absolutely anything away from Brodito. Love them. They look fantastic in this match, as they always do. Um, I think I'm calling it. This is my main prediction. Brody King's going to do the Macarena this weekend. I'm calling it. It's happening. You heard it here first. And that's the most important thing, isn't it? The big, meaty, tattooed guy doing the Macarena. Um, yeah, it just feels like the odds are stacked against them. I'd love to see their reign continue, but yeah, sadly for Brody, I don't see that happening. Um, I mean, how unstoppable Takeshita and Okada going to look? Okada's obviously the unified champion. Takeshita's the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion now. Neither of them can lose for those reasons, actually, which just further corroborates what I'm saying. I just think it'll be wrong for them to pick up a loss, at the point that they're at in their careers. So they're just gonna be a power couple, basically. Um, so yeah, that's. I know I've absolutely rattled through that and probably gone through it like just way too fast. But yeah, I think I've covered everything I wanted to, and I think I've made predictions for like the majority of Wrestledream. I know that my ones for the pre-show are quite hasty, but yeah, that's where we're at with it. I think that I don't think this was the strongest show in the world. I know I've been pretty positive about it all the way through. I don't think there was any really groundbreaking angles. All the wrestling was solid, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like, oh, really memorable matches, or we're going to remember this episode forever. It just didn't have that sort of vibe, whereas, last week, sorry, I hiccuped again, we gave it a 9.5, it was huge. So, it's difficult trying to do rating on your own, because it's like, there's no one to sense check you. I'd be really interested in knowing what Estelle thought of this one. It's like, did I dislike anything about it? Not exactly, no. I can't like pinpoint anything that I was like, oh no, this didn't work, apart from maybe the Acclaimed and maybe, Eddie Kingston, Hook. But there wasn't anything that I was like, oh yeah, that's the best thing I've ever seen. I absolutely loved it. Very sort of middle ground, I think, and I think we've built up a lot, some good tension, tension between Hangman and Joe, and obviously the Moxley and Allin thing is very hot. What else? Kris Statlander, Toni Storm is very hot as well. A big chunk of this show, like I've already said, was building up for pre-show matches, so that's a little bit disappointing. The Bucks versus Jurassic Express, that's again building up pretty well. It's tough. I'm stuck between like a 7 and an 8. I think we'll go with a 7.5 then in that case. That seems pretty fair. I think we'll just land in the middle with a 7.5. So we're down 2 points from last week, which was an impressive 9.5. Hopefully Wrestledream is going to be up there. Hopefully it's going to be fantastic. I'm sure it's going to be. I mean, you look at this card, it's stacked with talent. Like I've said, it's a 12-match card. It's star after star after star, and considering we don't have Ospreay, we don't have Swerve Strickland, Omega isn't wrestling, so considering all of that, AEW is in a very strong point to be putting on a card as strong as this. So what do you think? That's what I want to know. Do you agree with my predictions? Do you agree with my rating this week? Totally fine if you don't. I want to know about it if you don't. In fact, let me know. You can comment on YouTube, or you can go follow me on the socials if you want. You can find me. I'm Lucy Simons on most social medias, so you can find me there. And also you can follow along with my commentary adventures if you do decide to follow me on socials, and let me know all your thoughts on the podcast. And please do share us with your friends, help us to grow, leave a like, do give us a star rating on Spotify. Also, I'm interested, does anyone, I suppose this is a bit of a inaccurate survey, but I'm just curious if anyone wants us to be on any other podcast platforms. At the moment, we only do YouTube and Spotify, but did anyone want to listen on Apple Podcasts? Like, what's people's thoughts on different platforms? I don't know, I'm just curious about that. I think I've only ever had one person ask me if we're on Apple Podcasts, so maybe not, but just something I've been thinking about. But yeah, as always, thank you so much for listening to me ramble, and I'm sorry that Estelle wasn't here, and I've done my best on my own, and it's no doubt not as entertaining as when that beautiful lady is here, but I did my best, and I hope you will enjoy. Thank you so much for listening.
I must bid you adieu, goodbye, and